If you don't know anything about rugby, don't talk.
Regan. Drop goal from Larkham.
Australian 3-4, they've got the advantage.
Worst press conference. Well done, boys.
Welcome everybody to the Green and Gold Rugby Podcast for the week. We have some special guests in attendance this week, so sit back, listen and enjoy. Of course, as usual, download, share, and by all means come back and tell us where we got it wrong, because we'd love to hear your opinion on how this goes. Now, as for the people we've got, so first of all is myself, KARL. That stands for Quasi Rugby Lover. I'm from New Zealand. I immigrated to Australia after 43 years in the New Zealand Army. I am a complete believer in Anzac. However, I still want the All Blacks to win every game they play and Australia to win every game they play, except when they play New Zealand. Happyman is also from Green and Gold Rugby. He's a biased, one-eyed anti-New Zealand Australian. However, he has very much Queensland tendencies, and if anything about Queensland comes in, he immediately loves it. Our guests today, we've got two really special guests. First of all, Brett McKay from Rugby Pass, Australian columnist. He's a commentator, he's a podcaster, he's a wrangler of often off-piss, tangent-seeking, budget-blowing, location-ambiguous co-hosts. As you can tell from this, both Brett and our other imported player have told me what to say about them, and because I'm a good Kiwi and always do as I'm told, I'm doing it word for word. Then, of course, we've got Harry Jones.
Oh, this will be good.
Some people call him the Space Cowboy. Some people call him the Gangster of Love. Some people call him Harry because he speaks the poetry of rucks. He's a writer, he's a grinner, he's a lover, he's a sinner. His columns for The Raw and his 89 combo pod with Brett are a bit above average, all according to Harry. Hey, welcome, guys. It's really good to have you aboard, and I'm really looking forward to how this goes.
Thanks for having us, guys. This will be compliant is a word for it. If you're going to read our intros word for word,
it'll be a thing,
guys.
Yeah.
Look, I had to do that.
I'm suffering a little from imposter syndrome being amongst such royalty as Harry and Brett at the moment, but we'll carry on.
I must admit, I'm a bit of a fan of both you guys, both your podcasts and your Raw articles. So I'm a little bit in awe of what we're doing here, and I'm quite likely to make a few mistakes just purely because I am a little bit in awe of where I've got to having you guys on the podcast. But thanks very much.
Just breathe, Carl. Just breathe, Carl. Brett's a normal guy. He's humble. He's down to earth. He's not really got the airs you think he might have.
Yeah, with Harry, on the other hand's reputation absolutely precedes him, and whatever you thought, he's almost certainly right.
Okay,
stereotypical Safa then, eh?
Yeah.
So very much so. Very much so.
Ouch.
Yeah, very much
right,
so.
So today what I thought we'd do, we're going to go through each of the teams from the Tri-Nations, looking at what you think about each team. Initially, we'll talk about any players in particular that you're interested in, how you think the team will play. And then once we've gone through that individually, at the end of it, we're going to put our nuts on the line and we're going to tell the world what we think the first, second, third, and fourth team will be in the Rugby Championship this year. So first of all, we'll talk about Australia. Happyman, you can go first, mate. Who are you looking forward to see, and what type of game plan are you thinking they will play?
Look, I think we'll probably. I want to see KARL make his debut. I've been a bit of a champion of his over the last few months. He's probably the most like for Fraser McReight in terms of how he attacks the game. He's just got a fair bit of dog in him, a fair bit of psycho in him, but a lot of quality work around it as well. He topped the tackle count for Super Rugby during the season, and you could argue because he was at the Force, he got to make a lot of them, but he was 20 odd tackles ahead of everyone else. So he got through some work. And I want to see Sarah Uru also get a game, either at 7 where he played for Australia A or just on the bench. I think Sarah Uru, my son and I had the conversation, and he referred to him as kind of an Aldi version of Cameron Woki. He sort of does everything really well and is very, very, very good, but he's just not quite the player. but he's very good. I like his work. And they're the two guys I want to see. And I just want to see a continuation of the process. I mean, from where Eddie left us on the road to ruin, I feel like we're actually being run. Yeah, exactly. I'd like to climb out of the sewer. I felt like we've stopped digging. It feels like Australian rugby is being run by adults now, and we're moving in the right direction. So I'm all about where we're going for the journey. Looking forward to the game. Gents?
Cool. Fair enough. Brett, what do you reckon, mate?
I love that among Australian fans now there's just this universal approach that that the adults are running the game, and that there is just this it's like this. There's just this blanket unspoken agreement that everyone's just going to forget about 2023. All right, it just didn't happen. We're starting afresh. Everything will be fine. So I love that is just it's just transcending across borders, which is not something that happens in Australian rugby all the time. So good calls, Happy. And you reminded me of Sarah Uru playing 7 for Australia, because I noted with interest that Joe Schmidt on Sunday in his press conference up in Brisbane actually made mention of Uru coming in to what the words he used was maybe he could play some sort of kind of hybrid role for him, as in starting the game at 7 with the potential for, Tizano or Luke Reimer, who has become, as I've written for Rugby Pass this week, just an injected bench mongrel for the Brumbies for the last couple of years. Where to the point that he topped Super Rugby for pilfers per 80 minutes, which is a pretty fair achievement for someone who plays about 30. So I can flip a coin between Tizano and Reimer for what it's worth. They'll both do a good job. They'll both do the job that they need to do. It's a huge ask for them to come in and face the Box on debut, and perhaps the only saving grace there is that at least it's in Australia and it's not at Loftus like it was for Tom Hooper last year, which was a hell of an opening for him. I'll be keen to see where Schmidt's got the team going from midfield. I'll be interested to see who and how he wants to play out of 10 this game, and whether that 10, whoever it is actually going to have a bit of an opportunity to run the attack, or whether they're going to keep playing off 9 a little bit like they did through the July test, which Jake Gordon did a pretty bang up job of, to be in fairness. I've said numerous times, I thought he was 4th or 5th in line when that first squad was picked, and he, to his credit, has come in and done exactly the job that has been asked of him, and he's done it pretty well. So I'll be really interested to see how the halves selections look as well, amongst other things.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's good. So what do you reckon, Harry?
Yeah, it was nice to see my pod mate Brett surrounded by balls. He's got a ball like next to his head for the viewers, if you are a viewer. He's twirling a big ball on his lap, twirling it around with expertise like a halfback. Yeah, he's showing off his 9 skills. It's also very interesting to approach this game when you guys are prohibitive favorites at Fortress Brisbane.
Prohibitive favorites.
soon to be renamed Alliance, probably, because everything's Alliance. I don't know what the free sauce is like at Brisbane.
There's a limitation. You can only have one Allianz Stadium in each country.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That's fun. That's funny because I think there's 8 stadiums now
so far.
Allianz.
Yeah.
So obviously we're approaching a game where people are finding things. My article in the Roar this week is about how you find things, and about in our waking hours as adults, we actually spend an extraordinary amount of time finding things. It's more than what you would think it would be, more than eating, more than wanking, Happy Man. But we just don't really spend enough time with the known quantity in front of us. So that's why Rossi has named Sasha. The Box have named their team already. Who the Wallabies I would look for would be the people opposing Sasha, Ngomazulu, Feinberg, Ngomazulu, and then the other person that's new for you guys is Elrich Lowe. He's a rangy, kind of a Charlie Cale type, actually, at 8. So if the rest are the guys you remember, Ox, France, everyone's the same, except for one newbie in the pack and one newbie in the back. And so if you were thinking about the Wallabies, you'd say, so who is my 8? Who's my 6-8 combination? And then at 10, if it's Noah would have an actual experience gap for one of the first times in his test career over his opposite number. So that would be his time to shine.
Yeah.
If you looked at the larger tournament, I was looking more at Tom Hooper and Ben Donaldson, because I kind of look at peripheral players more than the ones that we know. Obviously there's some Wallabies that we know are, class like Alatoa, Angus Bell, Tupou, LSL, Slipper, Vellatini. There's nothing you need to know about those guys going forward. Kellaway, Korobete, maybe even Nick White to some extent. So you want to look at different 9s, you want to look at different 8s, and I think you want to look at what, has Joe found his playmaking, game managing 9, 10, 15? What does that look like? Because until we know what that looks like, then we don't know what the 6 has to do. How many rucks does he clean? Ball protection, which has been the problem of Wallabies as well as Cards, which kind of happens during the cleaning process. How far do my guys have to go? Does James Slipper have to get to 3rd channel, 4th channel? How many phases are we going? Eddie said it's, 3 phases and a kick. Is Schmidt going to really try to go deep in the count against the Boks with no real out-and-out fetcher against him until Kwagga comes on in the second half? Or is he going to try and do pragmatic ball? You would wonder about that, because Joe's got such good vibes building. Why would he want to take a back step right now and get toweled? Maybe he's going to play a much more cannier game than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a valid point. It's interesting that you talk about the 9-10. For me, they're important, but I think that for me, the most difficult position on the field to play is the 13. I think the 13 is critical in so many areas. The 13 is the person who sets up the attack and tries to create the space for the wings and the fullback. Yeah. He's the person who looks at where the opposition is going on their attack and sets up the defense to counter that. And for me, I'm really interested in how Joe goes down that path. I like Hamish Stewart as a 12. But for me this year, the person who's sort of epitomized most of that has actually been Fluke for the Reds. I thought he doesn't do anything flashy, but everything he does well. And I think that when you're in the situation the Australians are at the moment, and let's face it, they're 9th in the world playing 1st in the world, and our expectations on how that game goes should reflect that. I think someone like Fluke, who is steady, who provides that steady base, is someone that I want to see. I tend to agree with Happyman. I'd love to see Tiziano out there, whether it's Tiziano or Reimer. I think they both have different strengths but could do it. But for me, I'm really interested in see where this back line goes and how that play goes. I thought against Wales and to a lesser extent against Portugal was the way that he had the forwards doing short passes to each other and Jake doing short passes off the ruck. I thought that was a really good. It was the plan he had for Ireland. That's how Ireland play. That's how they keep that pace going, and that's really good. I've looked at the one of the issues and the Boks do a very good rush defence. Rush defence can be hard, but it also can be quite easy to beat as long as you have really quick ball coming off the ruck all the time, so that the people who rush out haven't got time to get back before they have to rush out again. And I think that one of the problems I have with Nick White is that quite often he will have to wait until it's perfect before the ball comes out, and all he's doing is slowing that process down. So, it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I think if Joe does his fast ball, does his interplay, we'll see how it goes. All right, Kiwi team, obviously my favourite. What do you reckon there, Harry?
Well, no, I think so. The big headlines, right, are that you guys dropped the Ginger 9, Finlay Christie. I don't think that's going to change necessarily how the thing starts for the All Blacks. And then I think the other big headline is that Satiti is still in there over Satutu. And that tells you a little bit more about, sorry, I'm picking on 8 and 9 because we're the 8-9 combo, but that tells you a little bit about.
We've got contractual requirements to do this.
Good product
We have to
placement.
drop
Good
that
product placement,
every
gents.
5 minutes. You will hear an 8 or a 9 or at the number 17. So I
I'm here
think
for it.
the All Blacks are the team I'm trying to watch a lot this year. It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that, you know, the reload on locks is one of the big themes, one narrative. Other thing is you guys have named 5 fullbacks, I think. So there's obviously, you know, there's an audition process for Razor. He wants to know who's going to be the ultimate trigger man at the back on the counter. We know what Bodie can do, but what can Stephen Perafetta do when he has a little bit of time and confidence? There are some matches.
Nothing this week because he won't be playing.
In which to, but just that like depth area of the Rugby Championship as a whole. I think it affords the All Blacks some time and space to mess around there. I think against England, they were just in a death struggle, because imagine what the headlines and narrative would have been for Razor if you drop one to England or both. So you had to go a little bit risk intolerant. But you would think against the Pumas, you would think there's a little bit of space and time there, depending on the record. When it comes down to Bledisloe, the second one, maybe at least, there could be some art for Razor. But, you know, we were talking to Paul Cully on our pod this week, and he made an interesting point about the Crusaders not really winning with trickery over the years. Mm-hmm. It was about having a superior depth at pack, playing territory, everyone knowing their role, being groomed from age 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to play each position. Each position had a proper, profile. So maybe he's bringing the All Blacks kind of back to the future, where it's not so much innovative Razor and all the bells and whistles, but more of a hard All Black team that won't be moved and monstered around, which probably, if you look back last 5 years, that's probably where the All Blacks did lose. It wasn't about being out-tricked or out-speeded. It was about being out-physicked. And I think, you know, this hard nut 5 that the Blues used to their advantage, the pack, is probably what he's looking for. I don't know if it's there. My big question with All Blacks, and I hope to see them in 4 tests this year. My big question about them is, who is that? Who is that second line? Who's that third best lock? I would say I'm watching this for that. And I think Argentina does present a good opposition for that issue. They've got a fantastic back 5 in their pack. I mean, I think if you put their back 5 against anybody, Pablo, Kramer, Lavanini, Petty, these guys are really class.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that, mate. Look, I think that New Zealand lost their way a little bit over the last couple of years. They didn't seem to know what game plan they wanted to play, and I think that's where some of it came in, and that's where some of the selections came in. I don't actually mind that Christie was dropped at all. I was at the game in Auckland live, and everyone around us was calling from about halfway through the first half to get rid of Christie, to get rid of bloody Rico Ioane, and get in players who actually knew their job. So I don't mind that at all. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how it goes with those halfbacks who are actually putting good, quick ball out there for people to actually deal with. So it'll be.
Why has it been such a long experiment with Rico Ioane at 13 when from the outside it doesn't look like proper New Zealand ball?
I don't know. I really don't understand that. In my view, he is not a 13's arsehole. He doesn't know how to create space for his outside backs. He is a brilliant player, and I would actually have him on the field as a wing as probably one of my first picks.
He tucks and runs. He doesn't look around.
To distribute the ball, you know.
And as a winger, it's surprising that he doesn't know how to create the space that he would want on the outside. And you know, I think Andrew Kellaway said to us that when he started playing a lot more 13 and even, you know, a few dalliances at 12 in games, he started seeing space on the outside differently, but he could see where it was and where he needed to be. But because he knew how he would want the ball in that space, he had an appreciation of how he needed to get it there. And you would think that Ioane being an outside back would by now, what are we, 3 or 4 years into him as a 13, would have a greater understanding of that.
Do you think in many respects all these coaches have fallen into the trap of seeing somebody who's an incredible physical specimen and falling in love with the athlete rather than the player?
Oh,
so
I'd be surprised if the All Blacks let themselves fall into that trap.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. Well, I don't dismiss the point, Happy, but I'd be surprised if the All Blacks let themselves fall into that.
Yeah.
Because
we've certainly fallen into that trap a lot. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very genius sentiment, right? To put the best available player, like he's my best player, so he could be number 10. You know,
pick the best 15 players and then just put him into positions. Yeah,
at test footy, you get found out not so much because of the highlights, because Rico has plenty of highlights. So if highlightism is guiding the All Blacks selection, then yeah, sure, you can find highlights. It's the lowlights, it's the missed opportunities, it's those. You know, obviously you give that one and we score, but you don't and it's hard. That's not a highlight. It doesn't crop up. But I'm surprised that would happen with Razor. I mean, I just think new regime come in. So I think it's because of the England thing where they had to beat England. It would just have been the worst possible honeymoon to go, oh, we lost to England on home soil. So I think he just stuck with
drew the series,
Yeah.
But now I'm interested in the Rugby Championship, especially against the most settled midfield in the world, really, between Jesse Creel and Damon Delende had played since 2015 semi-final against the All Blacks. Like that was who was on the field. They were both 20 years old. So you would think this is the time for him to say, is it an ALB, Havili? Is it, am I looking for a distributor out there? You know, is it a Conrad Smith prototype we're looking for, or is it a straight line breaker like Rico? I don't know.
KARL, remind me, who played 13 against Fiji in San Diego?
Billy Proctor.
That's who I'm thinking.
He looked good too.
He did. And Anton Linnett-Brown looked good at 12 as well. And
absolutely.
so, and again, we talked about this. It's almost like he's created a problem that he didn't need, because Geordie Barrett, for all intents and purposes, he was just going to be 12. Anton Linnett-Brown has shown some really, really good skills. We know he's a good 13. He's played a lot of inside centre for the Chiefs as well, and we know he can do that job. Suddenly he does it at test level, and it was against Fiji in San Diego. Make of that whatever you like, but he didn't look out of place. And more's the point, Billy Proctor looked like someone who knew what they were doing at 13. So, if you want a Conrad Smith type player, it's probably going to be someone like Proctor or Linnett-Brown at 13 rather than Rico Ioane.
I think one of the problems that New Zealand's had has been guys like Bruce Smith, played for Otago. He could play wing, fullback, centre equally well. And
Ben Smith.
And so all of a sudden there's this, look at this guy who plays all those positions really well. I can swap players around because they can play it. And what they didn't understand was that Ben Smith was such a special player. He could do things other players couldn't do. Ben Smith could play wing and centre, so we'll try Rico at centre because, it can be done. And I think that was the mistake they made.
It's the difference between a footballer and an athlete, though.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely. And a clever footballer.
Yeah.
I think that the centres going forward is going to be Geordie and Billy Proctor, and I think that Anton Linnett-Brown is going to cover both those positions, because I don't think Billy Proctor and Geordie can cover the positions. So I don't see them as being on the bench, whereas I do see ALB because he can cover more positions.
Are you going to play Anton Linnett-Brown at wing or fullback though?
No, but you can cover wing or fullback with Jordan.
Yeah.
Or even Severis. Severis can play both wing and fullback.
Yeah.
So they can do that.
It would depend. It then means you've got to either,
or Ruben Love.
Yeah. It then means you've got to be very, very careful on how you play Mackenzie and Bowden Barrett.
Absolutely.
You got five fullbacks to choose from, Carl. So that's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
What it's gonna show is that Stephen Perifetto won't be in that top 5 for very long. KARL, what about your locks? Because that looks like a bit of a concern for New Zealand.
Yeah.
Now that Scott Barrett's out of action for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because you've really got Tupavai and
Patrick Tuipulotu.
Sam
Yeah.
Berry, Tuipulotu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a bit light on locks when they come through.
Josh Lord's come in for this
Josh Lord's
first
come
block.
in and he's good, but is he going to be up there at international level and play that level of game? I think it is a weakness. I actually think, though, the biggest weakness in this All Black team is the fact that they haven't brought in a 10 as a young guy who can develop through over the next few years.
Harry Plummer.
Yeah.
They've brought him in at the moment, but
They have too.
Is he an international 10 or is he a super 10?
Everyone keeps saying that about Harry Plummer. Is he this? Is he that? And then he does it, and they go, "Yeah, but is he really?" So I don't know. Like maybe at some point, just trust him. I do think you put your finger on it, though, Karl. Is a specialization versus whatever general, utility. And the All Blacks have been riding this sort of utility thing for a long time because they did have players like Izzy Dag, Ben Smith, who could fit in everywhere, and why not Bowden Barrett? Classic.
Yeah.
So maybe it's going back to the idea of the specialization. I always liken the 13 as one of the most difficult positions because you're like a ballerina out there, but you have to blitz people as well. You got to be physical, but you have to be able to, run backwards and talk to your people over your shoulder. I don't fancy Rico as being that guy who's a communicator. So I think maybe it's a matter of finding those roles again, returning to ancient wisdom, All Black wisdom. Razor seems more like a vibe guy, like a culture guy. I don't think of him as being so ultra technical. So who's the other coach in the coaching box that does that?
I disagree with you there. I think he is highly technical. And if you look at the Crusaders, that's how they beat everyone all the time, is they could always just go back to their base game. Cody Taylor throws it to Sam Whitelock and they maul the shit out of people. And that was kind of their base game. And then they could develop all the bells and whistles that stood off the back of that really basic thing.
And every time there was an issue, they went back to the basics.
Yeah. That's correct. They went back to scrum, line out, maul, and that's. But here's the interesting thing as I look at the New Zealand team is they don't have Sam Whitelock, they don't have Brodie Retallick, and now Scott Barrett's out. They look thin there. And but the good thing about New Zealand, the thing they've always done really well is they've been ruthless. When a better player has come along, they've gotten rid of the older guy. Maybe a year early, but they've always gotten rid of the older guy. And this is kind of, for me, the first generation where you've seen them where they've aged out, they haven't been overtaken. The most famous one is Andrew Mertens. He was playing for the All Blacks one year and then he was benched the next year at the Crusaders because Dan Carter came along. They were that ruthless. They went, you might be the All Black 10, but now you're on the bench.
Although Dan Carter played 12 initially, but there you go.
There you go. Wrong again.
Well, but that was a succession plan. That was a succession planning thing anyway.
But where's that ruthlessness?
I think
nobody ever challenged Whitelock or Retallick when they were playing. And I'd submit to you, if they were available today, they'd be in that team.
The fact that there were storylines at the start of the year about Sam Whitelock coming back to New Zealand to play tells you.
No, that was bullshit. That was never going to happen. I actually, to be honest, I think that the problem with Whitelock is he played one season too long for the All Blacks.
Yeah.
And that actually prevented that development. And I put that onto the coaching team at the time that didn't have that ruthless edge. I think that
because they were trying to keep their job.
You see,
exactly right. And if Raynell hadn't fucked it up, they would.
Yeah, but when you see. And I agree with you, Harry. The English team was playing and using the experience of what they had because they couldn't afford to lose. But now they've come onto the Rugby Championships, and the first thing he's done is get rid of Christie. That was where that ruthlessness came in, and I think it's coming back.
And he's got rid of Christie at a time where TJ Perinara is out of action. So it's a good point.
Yeah, so
I think it's important to do experiments I think it's important to do experiments as coaches. The problem is, do you take the results of your own lab? And a lot of coaches will try something and then they double down, triple down because they know it's going to work next time.
Exactly.
You don't know what I see in this guy in the training. He's amazing. What I would say about on the technical side of Razor, when I hear him explain things, it's much more on general basis. I don't ever hear him drill down on something like incredible, like very X's and O's. It just seems to be much more of a, we believe in our system is our system. And I wonder about Jason Ryan. I think that's the name of your maul stopping coach, because he seems to be able to.
That's where the technicality is.
Yeah, where how do you stop a maul? Like he's really good at freezing a maul, making it stop, not pushing back and splintering it, which is the worst thing now, is to make the ref say use it. That's what Jason's all about. And he's the best at making the opposition team use it, which really diffuses the maul, right? Because now you just got a sort of a scrummish ruck instead of a moving attack weapon.
Yeah. Right. So any more, seeing as we've all stepped in at different points here as opposed to what we were going to do, is there any last comments about the New Zealand team that anyone wants to bring up? Happy, you haven't said that much apart from telling us our locks are shit.
Oh, look, I was just listening to the geniuses carry on. I had my two players to watch was the Safamu and Patrick Tuipulotu for exactly the reason of I think their line-out was garbage against the English, and it's Patrick Tuipulotu's time. If he doesn't do it now, he's 30.
He never will. Yeah.
Don't do it now. It ain't going to happen for him.
Yeah, I agree.
And Cody Taylor is a great player, but he's aging, so they need a Safamu to stand up. He's a very, very good player. Don't get me wrong, but that's where I'm at. But hey, look, they're New Zealand. They're actually quite good at rugby. So, I think we've established that over a generation or two. So
I actually think the problem with the line-out was the fact that Itoje is so fucking good at counter line-out work more than anything else.
Yeah. Fortunately, they're not going up against any good lineouts, being the Argentinians or the South Africans. So let's
talk about the South Africans before Harry self-imploded because you said they weren't any good. Harry, tell me about your team, my friend.
So basically the Springboks come in as rank underdogs.
Absolute bullshit.
They're suffering from a loss, whereas Australia has a 4-game winning streak, the longest tier 1 winning streak besides Scotland, who's playing everyone in South America.
We're number 1.
Yeah. Springboks have done a pretty good job of building continuity. If you look across in the chart from 2015, then you project forward to 27, you can see what system both Rossi and then Jacques and then now Tony Brown and Jerry Flannery are trying to build, which is, you actually build incumbency, you build caps. So there's now a possibility where you starting 15, it's about 950 caps, and the second would be 1,000, depending on where Billy plays, actually. And then the third is where they want to build some caps. So they're looking across and they say, Casillas 33. Do you want a 37-year-old, flank captain in Australia next World Cup? Probably not. We have a couple other people aging out. You have some 33-year-olds, Bongi, France. So you wonder about those guys. But in the main, they've been very lucky, actually, in building, because people have just fallen the right age group. I mean, 20-year-olds playing in 2015 can get to 2027. Yeah. But I still think it's that third line. And so one is, the like for like on Pieter-Steph du Toit. So you're going to look at a guy named Ben Jason Dixon, and that name is going to come up a lot because that is the guy with the body frame and the mentality and the dog in him, the humility, but that violent humility that Rossi is looking for, because he's a Pieter-Steph du Toit kind of work in progress. Sasha Feinberg Ngomozulu is that's sort of he's the star in waiting, the Mani who can kick with both feet, and the guy that they're putting a lot of faith in. So he's getting the start in Brisbane, which is actually phenomenal. At 10, he hasn't played 10 at the Stormers very much. He plays 12 at the Stormers, where Mani's number 10 and Damon Willemse is number 15, usually when they just run out. And Sasha has been that kind of guy who can move around and play every position. Rossi has been very clear. He sees Sasha as the 10. He sees Sasha as, the transformational figure who can be both the brains and the athlete at 10, who breaks some barriers and stereotypes in South African rugby, which is what he likes to do, by the way. For all of his bad, roguish ways, Rossi is actually a pretty progressive reformer. And so he wants Sasha to be that figure. Referees. Yeah, and even on that, sort of probably reformed that whole discussion. Or deformed it. But so I think that those two names are, you can look at those. And then I think maybe on the loose forward, South Africa never has a paucity of loose forwards who can run, jackal, fight, carry and tackle. The question is, who do you put your caps into? So the big debate in the Republic has been about Ivan Ruiz, which is this hot-headed guy, hair on fire kind of player, a little bit like a young Dwayne. And then you have Elrich Lowe and you have Cam Honeycomb from the Bulls, who are more like Spieth with a little more aggro. And so the wonder is that do you put those 10, 15 caps in the next year into Lowe? That's what it looks like Rossi's going to do. And so that's if you're watching from South African eyes and you're saying who's going to be the one to watch, it's number 8 and number 10 on this weekend. Everyone else is a known quantity, guys. I mean, it's literally like you could just roll back and you could look at Eben has owned that position. Pieter-Steph du Toit, doesn't have a bad game. And then you have the midfield solid. You have what I call lekkerbacks, which are these scrum-capped wings that run around a swivel. They have eyes in the back of their head. Their scrum caps make no sense at wing. They're short, but they're aerial. They're little, but they're strong. And they're just kind of, you can throw more in there, right? If you don't have KLA, you have Edville. If you don't have Colby, you have just people on the rank. So that's where we are right now in South African rugby. It's about finding the third string in every position so that when Bongi finally does, just finally crater or his shoulder decays, there's someone else to step in and throw lineouts.
Hey,
so Hooker is the other one.
I'm interested in. There's been a little bit of talk about the change to the laws in that are coming in for the Rugby Championship, and we've had a couple of the Australian players saying that they see this as helping them because it's going to go against the big South Africans who haven't got necessarily that stamina and that ability to run all day. How do you see that coming across in the Rugby Championships?
Yeah, I don't know about this fitness thing. So first of all, like the whole size dimension. The 2023 at the World Cup, the Wallabies was the biggest team in the World Cup. They're big. Teams are big now. I mean, every team can put, the same dimension of a lock. I think people are referring to the hardness of a guy like Kwagga Smith, who's tiny, but he just runs through a wall for you. Jasper Wiese is not a big 8. He's not as big as Valentini. I don't think you're going to have a size deficit. I think the problem is the power per, it's the power, the weight, so that Tour de France kind of measurements of how much power can Malcolm Marx generate.
Power weight.
And so I don't really think it's a question of that. As far as tiring them out, there are some players who would get tired out, but there's a bomb squad. So that's the whole point of the bomb squad. So I don't think you're going to see dragging Box on the field. It depends on the matchups. So against France in the World Cup quarterfinal, the French team was the less fit team, and it was the French team that ran out of gas. Against England was the same thing. The Box came from behind. Against the All Blacks, it was kind of parity. I didn't really see anyone.
You were just lucky Kane got a red card, mate. Otherwise, we would have won. But that's fine. That's
okay, we can relitigate that. But my point is, I don't think it's a fitness deficit for the Wallabies to exploit. No. It's probably more about spatial awareness because Super Rugby is differently played. The shape of it's differently played than the ERC. But the ERC is really quick. The scores are really high in the URC and Premiership and top 14 nowadays. Japan, a lot of the block players play in Japan. That's why Pieter-Steph du Toit can play in the wing.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm really looking forward to the time when South Africa has 3 injuries in their back line and end up with a prop on the wing because the bomb squad doesn't fit. But that's just something I want to laugh at.
Oh, that's great.
But that's why I'm not really. We touched on this week with Paul Cully, and I can't really see how there's going to be a fitness issue for the Box when they're running 5 and 6 forwards on at the 50-minute mark.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're going to go to the 85th minute. That's not going to be a problem for them. So, I mean, it's only moving from scrum to line out to scrum to line out is only an issue if there's a need for scrums and line outs, isn't it? So
true.
Unless the Wallabies have a game plan built around set piece, which I wouldn't recommend against South Africa, I'm not sure that this is the smartest piece of thinking from them at the moment. Harry, just remind me, Ben Jason Dixon is a hybrid 6 lock. Is that right?
Yep. He's tall. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's touching 2 meters, not all the way there. Very much like a Peter Steph young guy. He's kind of skinny for a blindsider, but he can add weight.
And so this is my question. In a 6'2" bench, he's picked 3 back rowers effectively.
Oh, yeah. So the bomb squad is misunderstood. The bomb squad has some flexibility. The key to the bomb squad is a guy like Quacha or a guy like Dion Ferry in the final who could come on and man several positions.
Play 7 or 2,
You could trust Peter Steph on the wing and defense, not in the midfield, but you can put a proper, fleet, agile forward at wing if he knows what he's doing. And actually, it helps you on kick chase sometimes and on kick pass. So I think that's the genesis of it. Now, there's one flaw, but there's a flaw in every kind of system. And one is, what if your backup, if your 9 goes down immediately, right? So then you stick in your backup 9, and now you've got no flexibility for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So that's the nightmare scenario, which did happen in the World Cup, kind of. So then you got to scramble, and Cheston Colby's playing 9, and then you're all up against it. I think Joe Schmidt's such a pragmatist. He wouldn't get distracted by the permutations of all this. I would think he would say, guys, no cards. Can we keep our penalty count down? Can we make a shape that works? Instead of worrying what the bomb squad will do, how about we don't go in double figures and penalties before the 60th minute? How about that? I think that's where, and the Springboks will try to force the Wallabies into giving up penalties in kickable positions to get easy entries and 3 points.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Brett,
I just think,
what's your feeling, Brett?
You go, Brett.
On the Springboks.
Yeah, no, look, I think we've sort of touched on it. I'm really excited to see Feinberg Mngomezulu. I got it.
Good job. Look at that. Practice.
I have been practicing ever since we stopped recording our podcast, pretty much. I'm really keen to see how he goes, but I've always been a Willie Leroux fan, and the way that he slots into this team, and he's such a crucial player now in Russie's shape and all that, and to the point now that he probably hasn't got the legs to play 80 minutes, but if there's someone who probably needs to be able to play 80 minutes, it's probably him in this shape, because if something goes down the back line, Grant Williams is probably your back 3 cover, which is probably not ideal either. So, he really needs Willie Leroux to stay strong. And Spiders Leroux is the sort of player who will play 85 minutes and he'll throw 15 passes for 3 try assists and not make a tackle. And when he
that's optimum.
That's called veteran.
It's experience, Happy, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's absolutely experience. Yeah. And I reckon South Africa win 19 games out of 20 when he does that. So, he's got a role to play. I'll be really keen to see whether he can still do it. And he's certainly still doing it at, Japan and Irk level and all that. So, we find out whether he's got the legs to get to 27.
It's like having a coach on the field, when you're at live and you watch some of these players. I watched Bowden Barrett live, and he's just barking everyone. He's positioning everyone. It's so great to have a guy at the back who can tell you where to be. So
it's a throwback to under 9s when you've got your assistant coach on the field.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and look, I don't know.
Russie's not allowed to carry water anymore, so you
can't have him doing it. That's right.
Yeah.
I presume he's doing the physio work himself now as well, and he's lost Nienaberger as well. So, I'm keen to see. I've not seen Ben Jason Dixon at all. I've heard rave reviews every week since January, but I've not seen him yet. So I'm looking forward to that.
The key is he's hyphenated, Brett. You know about hyphenated players.
But he's hyphenated the wrong place. If he was Ben Jason Dixon, that'd be fine.
There is a world in which Springboks and All Blacks can play where half the team is hyphenated except for the Barretts. And, even then, maybe the Barretts could work on that.
Yeah, that's it. Just marry smartly.
Hyphenated names just shows a lack of sincerity in a marriage as far as I'm concerned. But there we go. Happyman, how do you feel?
Look, I think it'll be interesting to see how the Staffers play. They played with some absolutely wonderful adventure in the first test against Ireland, showing the influence of Tony Brown, trying to get into the wide channels, doing all that sort of stuff. And then in Ireland,
Jesse Creel's never seen so much ball.
I know. We could make any sort of comment, but he But then in the second game, when it was on the line, they kind of bottled it and went back to what they do. Like they went, we're just going to be bigger, stronger, faster, and just beat the door down, and very nearly did it. So against Australia, which, let's be honest, is probably at this point in time lesser opposition, will they have the invention to continue to go, okay, we're going to move the ball wide, we're going to keep to that, even if the game gets tight? That'll be my big look at this game. But you look at the South African bench. It's not even, to your point, Harry, it's not the starters that really make the South African team. It's, I will just bring on Malcolm Marx, at the 50-minute mark.
When did Malcolm Marx last start a test, Harry?
But they don't
know it's been a
him
while, but he had a terrible injury. So he was going into the World Cup as the starter.
He come off a broken leg. Yeah.
Then the Irish broke his leg with the double clean. And he's come back. I think it was a fracture or a crack, whatever. But I think the way it's also about height. So Rossi and Don Human, the scrum coach, talked a lot about having different heights on your front row. So you had there was a fire plug where you had Ox, Trevor, and Bongi, which is a really short front row. Yeah, I mean, it would be short than anyone else. And then you had a big one, which was France, Kitsoff, and Malcolm, which is a tall front row. And the theory there was to sort of start them differently. Sometimes they came in the bomb squad, sometimes they came in the start. At some point in time this year, they kind of went with a tall short guy, which is France and Ox on the same front row. But there's something about that combination that's giving other teams big problems. The Irish just barely survived it, but they leaked penalties in both games. We have a short Ox.
They're trying to create the angle straight away. Yeah, you can see.
So you almost have to scrum in anyway, and then the ref sees that picture. Sorry for use the picture thing, but the ref sees the picture from the first scrum, and then the first time it breaks, you go penalty. That's really what the Wallabies have to watch out for, is that kind of that terrible picture that the referee gets stuck in his brain, and the rest of the match you're getting pinged.
There is also a level of perception around the South African scrum is very strong, but there's that perception of it. So in the Ireland game, you go back and there was one particular penalty that went against Ireland, and Mal Herbert dropped to the knee and then got back up. And as soon as the Irish guy went down, it was like, oh, penalty. So it's just there's a perception, and the perception is reality that South Africa has a very good scrum. But because you've got a very good scrum, you often get away with a bit more, which is that's part of the joy of the game.
And the interesting part there is that it's Luke Pearce in the first game, Paul Williams in the second game. So potentially two contrasting viewings of set piece and breakdown and all that as well.
Yeah, which is what makes it a great game to watch at all times.
Yeah,
it's not the same.
Absolutely.
It's not the same.
Yep. Yeah, cool. I mean, for me, Stefan du Toit, SDT, is just a legend, and I just love watching him play. So I just want to watch him get on the field. Esterbeth is. I still love that picture that they show when him and Alatoa were having their argument and glaring at each other, and it was just brilliant. I love the South African players. I love New Zealand playing South Africa. I still remember getting up as a young kid. Mum and Dad would have a dinner party on, and then at 2:00 in the morning they'd wake me up and I'd come out and listen to it on the radio, because we didn't even have a TV in those days, and it was just brilliant. I just love the South Africans. Love beating them, but I more love losing against them. But that's just the way it goes. I think as much as you say the fitness isn't an issue, I do think that one of the ways that you can beat South Africa, or make South Africa harder for them in the game, is to move the ball around more, so that their big forwards do have to move more. And I think that if I was playing South Africa, then my game plan would definitely be to reduce the set piece and move those players around a lot more, because as much as you say the fitness isn't an issue, I actually think with some of those big players, it becomes an issue after a while. And I think that is a way to beat Not so
And-
much a way to beat the box, but it's a way to lessen the box power game,
Yeah.
which opens up other opportunities that you can use against them.
There's ways
So
to slow them
that's what I
down,
would
Carl,
think.
without making it a set piece battle. That's
Yeah.
if that's the approach, there's merit in that. But doing
Yeah.
it by set piece is not going to be smart.
No,
I
you're not
certainly
going
agree with
to look.
that.
You're not going to beat South Africa by playing a set piece game.
No,
and
no.
with everything that's going on, they are phenomenal. They're number one in
Yeah.
the world for some very good reasons. They play some beautiful rugby. What I really love about South Africa at the moment is the way they actually are spreading it at times through their backline when they get going. I don't think Pollard helps that very much, but the rest of the team, when they go that way, they're just so beautiful to watch.
And they're clearly going to play it wide this week
absolutely.
with Feinberg and Gomezulu.
There's no reason to pick Sasha if you're gonna then hoist,
if you're going to play 10-man rugby, exactly
20 Gary
right.
Owens, right?
Exactly,
So there's that.
Exactly right.
That's the signal. Sasha wouldn't be starting against All Blacks. He wouldn't be starting against Ireland. So it's an acknowledgement that this is an opportunity on the fast track of Brisbane or Suncorp to say, what does it look like? And if we lose one, and that Sasha is doing badly, they bring Pollard in anyway. He's on the bench.
And that being the case, I think that probably means that Schmidt almost certainly has to play Ikitau at 13 because he's your defensive linchpin, who holds that line together against the fast attacking box line that we'll play it wider. There's no doubt there.
Yeah, and Carl, one of the reasons for the bomb squad that in the internal camp discussion is that you're allowed to empty your tank. So let's say you have a bigger forward like Ibn, and he maybe doesn't want to go 80. He can, but if he wants to just think about it as all I got to do is play out of my skin for 45, 50 minutes.
40 minutes reset.
And then I've got a guy coming in like Ben Jason Dixon, who's probably would be one of the quickest locks in World Rugby, and you have Kwacha, got to be one of the quickest to lose forwards. The the fitness problem is solved by the bomb squad in two ways. One is I empty my tank so I don't have to worry. And the second thing is when you have Ben Jason Dixon, Marco van Staden, and Kwacha Smith on the field with Peter Steph Toy, that's a pretty quick back four. So I think that's
absolutely
like, I think Rossi and those guys have thought that through and said, people are doing that to us. What can we do? And that's why the second half has been the Box, best scoring.
Which is why if you are going to play that game plan against them and keep that speed up, by hell, you better score some friggin' points because if you don't, then you're stuffed.
Just
the Wallabies have to start well. It really is. When you beat the Box, you started well. Like Ireland, you got ahead and then make the Box a chasing team, which is not the best.
Make the Box make the Box play a 3-point game. Exactly. Just on your earlier point, Carl, about moving around, I think this plays into now the fact that we are seeing the Wallabies through their pick and drive. They're going 1.5, 2 passes wider. So they're gonna make the South African defence make decisions or not. They're gonna have to be smart where their cleaners are because the ruck is now not right in front of me. It's actually 1.5 meters away. So that's going to be the way to move them around and to force them into decisions that creates the wrong pictures, Harry.
Actually, it's funny you talk that because I was talking on the blog about refereeing and the picture, and as a referee, that picture you see is absolutely what you make your decisions on.
Of course,
you haven't got enough time for
it's all you can do.
Yeah,
it's all you can do.
Enough
it's
time
all you've
for
got to go on.
Yep. And it's interesting that when we talk amongst different referees is that 2 referees will see the same thing and have 2 different pictures just because of their experience. I mean, I started playing as a 6-year-old in Wainio-Mata in New Zealand, breaking the ice before we went on the field because then it wouldn't hurt so much when you got tackled. So the picture that I see is different from a lot of other referees just because of the experiences we have, which then comes down to the decisions you make on the day.
It's the age-old analogy of holding up a coin, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll both see different things, and we're looking at the same thing, but we'll see different things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Argentina. Argentina are a bit of unknown for me, to be honest. I don't know a lot of the players. I agree 100%, Harry, with what you said. Their back 5 and the forwards are just world class. They've got some fantastic players who are doing really well. I think they've struggled in the past with their 10 and their distribution through the back line because they seem to not sure about either who is their best 10 or what are they actually trying to do with that ball once it comes back from the forwards, and there's been some indecision there. So for me, look, I want to see Pablo Matera carry on again, although I do love it when a player winds him up because he has got that fiery Southern African bit where he gets a bit upset at times, but he's a brilliant player, and his linking with the other forwards is what I think is a really good strength. He knows how to put himself into space, but he also now knows how to create that link between the forwards and backs in a way that some of the other forwards in the Argentinian forward can't do quite as well. But what I'm really looking forward to this Argentinian team this year is how they run their back line. What are they going to do at 10, and how are they going to run the outside back? So that's what I'm looking at for that. Brett, what do you reckon?
Yeah, much the same. Like, that back row of Crema and Matera and Chocobatos was the difference between them winning playing pretty ordinarily in the first test against France and then absolutely smoking the French a week later.
Yep. And
then the other part of that was that Santiago Carreras at 10 was brilliant in the second game as well. And again, something that we've touched on. He was a fullback and a winger who got thrown into 10 about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and he is looking more and more the test 10 now. Yeah. So I don't have too much trouble about how they're going to play off 10. I'm curious to see who they stick in at 9, because that's actually been a bit of a revolving door of over the last probably 2 or 3 years, even since Kibeli and since the disappearance of the Jaguares. Actually, they just haven't quite had that same production line at 9. They'll be different out wide without De La Fuente being that big gap hole runner at 12, 13 as he plays, but they're a decent team. I'll be interested to see what the Contepomi Los Pumas look different to the Checker Los Pumas. I'm not sure they'll be. They'll still. Same. No, they won't be the same. They'll still be hard on the ball, but that might be more to do with the personnel than the plan.
Yeah.
And you're right. We've sort of lost connection with Argentina now, and they've unfortunately been the great casualty of COVID in world rugby, is that we've just lost that connection, and where we knew 85% of their squad pretty well through Super Rugby and then into the Rugby Championship. Now suddenly they're all playing predominantly in the France and England and Japan to an extent, and we just don't get to see, like in Australia, you can only watch the English Premiership now through legal means. Is
Creevy too old?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's sort of like the cavalry's come back in for this series, because there's half a dozen guys, including Augustin Creevy, coming back in. Lavanini, we mentioned before, coming back in, who didn't play in those July tests. And I think the question about it is fair. He'd be reasonably fresh though, because Leicester Tigers didn't play a lot of postseason football this year.
He was at Newcastle, wasn't he?
Creevy was at
Montoya's at Leicester Tigers.
Montoya's at Leicester Tigers. And you're right. Sorry.
Look at that.
You're spot
Bringing
on.
the knowledge.
Happy.
Knowledge.
Well, either way,
he didn't do a lot of winning in Newcastle. That's for sure.
Newcastle also didn't play a lot of postseason rugby. So
they didn't play a lot of They didn't play a lot of in-season rugby.
No, it's true. So it'll be. I'm looking forward to seeing Argentina again, just to see them again, to be honest.
Yeah. No, that's a fair call. Happy, what's your call on Argentina, mate?
Look, again, because I only watch my rugby through legal means, I'm looking forward to seeing the Juan Martin Gonzalez, who plays for Saracens. He'll obviously be on the bench or something in the back row. He was very good for them. He was probably one of their better players. And Santiago Carreras at 10, I really like. He just seems to have time. Yeah, that rare thing that you just don't see a lot. But to your point, I think Augustin Creevy playing is a worrying sign for them. in his prime, I think he was the best hooker in the world, but that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's closer to my age than he was. He's than 30 probably. That's probably
Damn
a bit
younger
harsh.
than me, mate.
Happy, I say this in the nicest possible way, but that seems rough.
Yeah, that is pretty rough, to be honest. I might step back from that one a little bit, but in any case, look, the interesting thing is they've got Australia at home. When they play away, they don't really care about how they play. They just want to try and get the result. I think when we're playing them in Argentina, they'll be forced, because of a whole stack of domestic reasons, to try and play rugby, and that could be to our advantage. So that would be my big thing. My big thing on them. When they play away, they slow it down. They do all these things. They don't want the ball to be in play. So, but I hope they do well, but I still hope they come fourth.
Yeah,
Harry. Yeah. How are you seeing Argentina, mate?
Argentina's fun to watch, the pageantry around it, whether they're at home or just their sash jersey, which looks like they're running from Miss World. When you see the names and you have Sean Maloney kind of go with those names, are you listening to an opera? Are you listening to a meal, or are you swearing? A lot of these names, they'll make you tense if you Sinti, if you get Sinti wrong, or Chocobaras, or Del Gai, or Marroni. You might make some people mad. Bazan,
Montoya.
Pedamonte. I mean, it's unbelievable when you go down the list. I love saying the names. I love watching them play. They're an angry group, actually, sometimes. And they can flip. They can be really joyous and fun to watch that way, or they can just be like straight up alley. Every match I ever played in Uruguay or Argentina was straight up a war. Like, my ear was being grabbed. There was some repositioning of my nutsack. It just feels like they can go that way. Bautista, Gonzalo, Matias, these guys are like, they're born to brawl. I'm going to say this is a test of the model, which is this whole gain line analytics, cohesion, coherence, all that stuff, playing the same place. Argentina is flipping around on its head and getting to quarterfinals, sometimes semifinals, with every single player playing in a different place, different time zone. And this gets to the Ocean's 11 thing. We go, but what if all these players like Chocobaras, Carreras, Montoya, Matera, they're the best players in their clubs. Like, you go over to each one of their clubs, they go, who's your best player? That's one or two is one of these RGs. So there's something about the idea of going away and playing in rain, playing in snow, playing in heat, playing in different cultures, and you come back, and if you do the right thing, if the chef of this, or the boss of the bank robbers, can make everyone do the right thing, so the safe cracker is playing well with the getaway driver, then you can have a team. You can imagine a team with Argentina where it's just brilliant. Where their holes are at prop, which is weird.
Yeah.
Argentina is supposed to have these monster props. So they got Little Bello and Little Gallo, Guy, Joe, and Bello, and they're not dominants. They don't push anyone around. They just survive scrums, and that's just difficult. That puts you behind. And I think also that idea of trying to, being scared to maul or a scrum is a bad look for Argentina. If they can just find some young props, future looks bright for them in 2027.
I reckon, Harry, that's actually why Sinti and Creevy have come back in, just to get a bit of experience and size up front.
Yeah,
their under 20s. Their under 20s props look pretty good, but they're still.
Yeah,
20s.
They do.
They're 20, exactly. Yeah.
One of the things I find with Argentina is that passion sometimes interferes with their game.
It can do.
Yeah,
that's very tactful.
Absolute passionate team. That the players they rely on the passion to drive them, but sometimes that passion goes against their play and causes issues. And I think that I still remember when who was it wound up Matera that time? Dane Coles. When Coles wound up Matera that time, and after the game, he wouldn't even shake his hand. There was none of this what stays on the field. And you could see after it happened, Matera's game fell off during that game because the passion of what that happened in that argument he had with Coles actually affected the rest of the game.
To be fair, To be
You
fair,
know,
Dane Coles could get Gandhi offside. Like,
oh
you know,
yeah, that's absolutely true. But I mean, it's like when we talk about Australia and we talk about Jake Gordon, if I had a team playing against Jake Gordon, one of the first things I'd do is I'd make sure that in the first ruck, one of my players slapped him in the face, because he gets really upset and his whole game goes to pieces. And I'd take a penalty to have his game go to shit. So, and I think sometimes with Argentina, that passion can work against them as much as it works for them. So it's something that the coach
100%.
needs to.
Funnily enough, they seem
to
to play their most relaxed, most joyous, most they seem to play their most almost un-Argentinian rugby when Checker was involved. If there was going to be anyone who would get them, who would bottle the playing with passion thing, you would have thought it would have been Checker, who would have just bought into that. But he seemed to bring out a different side to them, and they
remember when we talked to him, and then we talked to other people inside the Argentina. They viewed him as Anglo-Saxon, logical, like straight line, very organized. We're like, wait. Is this Checker? So that tells you how the perspective shifts when you say, "Oh, this guy from Australia coming." Like, nah, man, Checker's Checker. Exactly. Man on fire.
Exactly.
But he was quiet and reasonable to them.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, here we go. This is where we're having first round matches: Australia versus South Africa. So, Happyman, who's going to win? What's the score difference going to be, and why is Australia going to beat South Africa?
Well, I'm going to go.
I don't care why.
Yeah, frankly, I don't either. But I'm going to lean into Harry's thing. It's Fortress Suncorp. You just got to have hope at this point. Look, Australia. I made this point to you before we started potting. If you recall when Rassie got the job for South Africa are a basket case. The difference between first and 10th in Australian in world rugby these days is 5%. It's not that great, and that's the beauty. It used to be the top 5 teams in the world could beat each other. Now it's the top 10.
Yeah,
and in reality, at any one team is 5% under where they want to be, and another team's 5% above. That's the result.
They can get beat by 30.
Correct. I think if you play this game 10 times, South Africa wins 7. But traditionally, they haven't toured well, and that'll be one of the things that South Africans will be saying, right, to be considered a really great team, we've got to tour well now. That's the next step in their evolution, to be considered in that upper tier of, 11 to 15 All Blacks. That's where they've got to be. So they'll be coming with some ambition, but I just think we've got a good thing going. I'm an Australian. I'm going to go for Australia.
Fair enough. And now we have South Africa.
I'm going to go with 10, just because I think it's going to be a fairly high-scoring game.
So, Harry, why is he wrong?
I'll continue the theme. Shock upset. Australia will lose in Brisbane. That is an unusual thing. I'm sorry to say it. It's going to be surprising. And,
underdog South Africans scrape home in thriller.
Yeah,
I think
by 60 points.
Bucks know exactly who they are, and everyone knows exactly what they're doing. I don't think that's true of the Wallabies yet. So I think it's going to be Bucks by 13 to 16.
Okay, Brett.
I'm not going away from Australia by 15. I'm just not picking against the Wallabies. That's just it's just that simple. Look, they can beat South Africa. There's no reason why they can't beat South Africa. So and you're right, Happy. There's an element of hope in that, but I think that we've seen some good progression in the Wallabies through July. This is another step. Again, this will be the hardest test that they have played this year by some margin, these next 2 weeks particularly. But this is how we find out where they are. And, everything that Schmidt has been very deliberately downplaying comes into focus over these next 2 weeks. So we'll see.
Very cool. Well, I'm gonna create this a split decision, because I'm actually with Harry here. I think
surprise.
And the reason.
What a surprise! A Kiwi picks against Australia.
No, look.
There's your headline, gents.
I think that what Harry said is actually where the critical line is for me. The South Africans know their game. They know where they want to play. I don't think Australia knows what the game is yet. I think that Smith is bringing in a game plan he wants them to come to. And I think that against Wales and against Portugal, they showed that they are coming along with that. But I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be an issue for them. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout at all. And I think that South Africa will win. I think they'll probably win by less than 10. But I think that they're just going to be too strong.
Do we think it's going to be a high or a low scoring game? Because my gut feeling is this could be 45 plus aggregate.
Yeah, I think it'll be a high. And the basis for all my actual prediction, the serious side of it, is I thought that the Wallabies leaked too many points to Wales and Portugal in moments of the match where I was trying to imagine, so what would it look like with Colby, with Villy, with guys like Diolende, and I thought they'll probably leak the same. So if they leak the same or worse, you're looking at 28, 35 points for the Boks. I do think the Wallabies will score. I think there's plenty of space on offer against the rush defense. So I think it should be
could
like
easily
35 to 25.
It could easily be 5 or 6 tries to 4 or 5. It could easily. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah.
All right.
Games are sellout as well, gents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that.
Oh, good.
Which is
great.
Nice. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I saw the Reds was it on Sunday? They put out there was only a couple of hundred tickets
500.
left.
Yeah, a couple of hundred tickets to go. It'll be sold out by now. The smart thing they've done is they've moved the community rugby around. So some community games are on Sunday, and a lot of them are on the Saturday starting at midday. So you can go and watch the community game and go to the game.
I must concede, I only realised about 10 days ago the 2:45 kickoff.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you that Australians will sell out a stadium if they feel like they're going to go watch the best players on offer. It's really all about that, is getting, like Carl's talking about. I want to see Peter Steph-Toy. Like, you want to see him live. It's magic to see these generational players and see, what they can do on the pitch. I like Brett and I love to go early to these live games and watch the warm-ups. I think there's something on that no one can show you on TV. If you go there an hour early and you got your meat pie and you're just watching how the guys get ready for the match, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's interesting to watch different teams, how they warm up too. Some teams all skill, other teams all physical, and it's just interesting to dial into the mentality.
What I noted happy about the Wallabies in Sydney for the first Wales test, and we were sitting end on, so we had a great view of it. They were just in front of us. Was that there was, what did I count? There was 5 extra players, Australian players kitted up, so there was 28 players involved in the warm up. But it was the methodicalness, the way that that Parling and Cron were taking them through the set piece. At one point, Jeff Parling is standing on top of a platform ladder, taking line out throws from the 3 hookers. Josh Nasser was throwing as well for this game. Now, Jeff Parling wouldn't have taken line out throws. Like, he would have been nearly 3 meters in the air when he was catching these balls. So he wouldn't have taken them that high as a player. So it's interesting that he's got the Wallabies thinking that sort of high for target. So, and they were really methodical. And in the whole time, Schmitz was back on about the 10-meter line, just watching it all. And then the follow on to that was that he said post-match, we kind of didn't really get our warm-up ready. Like, he actually said the captain's run wasn't great and our warm-up wasn't right. And I thought, geez, if that's not like that, it looked pretty methodical and pretty good to me. So
that's cool. Interesting. Okay, New Zealand versus Argentina. Harry.
Oof. I thought that they were cagey against England. So I think this is one of the ones where All Blacks hit their straps.
Yeah.
Go a bit large. I'm going to go New Zealand scores somewhere around 40 and Argentina scores somewhere around 20. It's like a big score. Yeah. I think both these matches will be high scoring matches, and I think New Zealand wins comfortably.
I reckon that game is either like there'll be a converted try in it, or they'll either win by 7 or they'll win by 25. That's the way. I think that's the way it flips.
New Zealand.
You know, when
Yeah,
you sit on a
yeah.
fence like that, you get bloody splinters up your ass, Brett.
It's going to be big or small.
Yep,
Yes.
that's right. It's going to be wet
Exactly.
or dry.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry, Bill.
Mate,
Happyman?
I think it'll be an issue. I'm backing New Zealand. I think the interesting thing is it's kind of strength against weakness. We've already articulated that we think the Argentinian back five are in locks and Lucy's are really world class, and I think there's still question marks about the New Zealanders in that respect. So it's kind of almost a strength on a weakness. If Argentina can get it into that kind of maul game, I think maybe they can go close. But ultimately, I think New Zealand too much class. They'll get 3 chances. They'll score 3 tries from 50, and they'll pick up 21 points doing that. And then the rest of the game will be 10-all, and they'll win by 21.
Yeah, there you go.
That's kind of how they do it.
That's actually a fair call. The only thing I'd say is that I agree. I agree. The back five for Argentina and their forward pack are really good. I don't necessarily think their loose forwards are better than New Zealand loose forwards. I think that their locks and loose forwards together might be better than New Zealand's locks and loose forwards. But I'm pretty happy with New
it's
Zealand.
definitely back five versus back three.
I think that
who would you have, Matera or who's going to play 7 for New Zealand?
It's going to be interesting who they put
Papa Lee. I'd have Matera.
To be honest, I don't think Papa Lee's had a good season. I don't think he played well against
did have
England.
Matera for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and what Argentina does with their flanks or their loose forwards is they don't even really have proper blind side, open side. They really do a left, right, and they just say you're the left side of the field, you're the right side of the field, and they kind of keep that way.
To the point that I reckon Matera has started tests at 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, and you can interchange them. Kremer could play lock. Matera could play all positions. Juan Martinez Gonzalez played 8 for his club. They really developed a system, almost like the French, where their loose forwards play differently. So it's actually very difficult to do head to head. I don't know if Sam Cane could play what Juan Martin is trying to play because he's out there in the trams. So I think the clash of styles is interesting. Now that being said, I was there. I was in Adelaide watching Box Wallabies, and we watched the New Zealand ball over against Argentina. After that match, like we were in a little bar in Adelaide trying to watch it, and there is something about Argentina if they could just hang around. They're bloody minded. Those guys know how to win.
If they can get a sniff, they're good enough.
So I think New Zealand has started well.
Low.
And enough of this Argentinian squad played when they won in Christchurch year before last. So
that was Foster. It's not going to happen, guys. New Zealand's going to win. Come on,
I love the faith in Razor.
I love the way
I love that all New Zealand.
I love that you're pointing out all these weaknesses, but come on, New Zealand's going to win this. I'm sorry.
They will.
Prediction,
mate. I picked New Zealand by 21. I just prefer it not be the case.
Okay, so 1-4. Harry, 1-4 at the end of the Rugby Championships. What's your rule?
I'm really going to enjoy watching how far down you try and slide South Africa here.
The All Blacks are always the favorite in the Rugby Championship. It's their championship. They designed it. It's made for them. And so, number 1, New Zealand. If it's not number 1, New Zealand, it's a failure, and Razor must go. And then number 2, bringing up the pack. My little Bocklings, underdogs. And then the Schmid Wallabies and the Kontapomi Pumas fighting it out for the wooden spoon. But I think the Wallabies just take that.
Yeah.
Just ahead of
spoon.
Yeah, no, let's say that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they will not get the wooden spoon. Felipe will get the wooden spoon, and it won't matter.
Okay. Brett?
Yeah, I think that'll be the order. I think Australia is good enough to win one of all 3 series. Yeah, they genuinely can do that. So, and if they do that, then they could be a chance of actually finishing second, if we're honest. But the Box will finish first by a good margin, and then New Zealand and Australia and Argentina.
Yeah,
Happyman.
Well, I can't believe that Harry picked South Africa to finish second.
No,
I just wonder.
He's been trying to talk him down as
trying to sandbag himself.
2 months.
Yes. Somehow they managed to be underdogs against Ireland at home.
They were still underdogs against Ireland at home when leading by 20.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Amazing. Look,
Always.
I just wonder what would happen in South Africa if they lost 2 tests at home to New Zealand.
They won't have to worry about that this year.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's going to be South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina.
Yeah.
I think if Australia can win 3, I think that's a sort of a B plus. If they can take a game off South Africa and New Zealand and Argentina, you know, as a fan,
tournament.
I'm going to be happy with it.
Good tournament.
Going to be happy with that. You know, I kind of expect them to win one of the 4 games between South Africa and New Zealand, and you know, go from there. But yeah, that's where I see it. I think it'll be good fun though. I'm really looking forward to it. I was interested.
Bill, it'd be interesting, Bill, if the old Tri Nations all split their series against each other, and then they all beat, you know, they all blanked Argentina, and it comes down to some sort of bonus point permutations.
It will be. It will be. It'll come down to for and against tries.
Yeah. I was listening to your pod today, and you were talking about Six Nations and the Rugby Championship, and one of the things I thought, one of the things I thought was the reason it's the Six Nations is so much more passionate, or you think of it as more passionately, is because away fans don't travel to the Rugby Championship.
Yes.
You don't get 10, 20,000 Scots turning up at Cardiff Arms Park, or, you know, traveling to, you know, so you don't get, because it's so far apart, you don't get the traveling fan. There'll be 10,000 South Africans who, you know, at the game on the weekend, but they all live in Brisbane.
Yes,
there'll be 50,000 in Perth because they're all there.
Yeah, that's fair. And the other big difference is that Six Nations Inc. has a marketing and communications team of 25, whereas Sanzar remains 5 people in an office in Bondi.
Is Sanzar real, Brett? Does Sanzar exist? Is there an office where I can go and say hello?
There is an office in Bondi Junction, I'm told. I've never seen it.
And you're a professional at this.
I'm told.
Well, all I'm going to say is that Harry's just become one of my favourite people ever now, and I'm going to absolutely follow his call with New Zealand winning. I think New Zealand will struggle to win 2 games in South Africa.
KARL, he does not believe what he said.
Yeah, I know, but I'm following it anyway, because that's what you do when you're a one-eyed Kiwi supporter, which I always am. So I think New Zealand absolutely will win 1 game in South Africa. I think they would certainly struggle to win 2. Playing Argentina at home, I think, will help them a lot, and I think they should cover both of those games. So I think that'll be enough to get them up to the top. My main reason for that is a big hope that Australia does manage to beat South Africa in at least one of the games here in Australia, which I think they probably could do. So I'm going with you, Harry. I'm going to say New Zealand's going to win. South Africa will be second. Australia will be third, and Argentina, until they can get back into the Super Rugby and develop that cohesion that they had with the Jaguar or the Jaguar team, then I think they're going to struggle. Yeah, so that's it from me. So any last points? Happyman, any last points you want to bring up?
No, gents, it was absolute pleasure. Good to work with some professionals for a change, and happy to get on with it.
I feel bad now.
Can't wait for the weekend. Although I'm not in Brisbane this weekend. I'm actually going away on a trip out west. So my
sounds poorly planned, Happy.
Very poorly planned on behalf of my wife, but you know, that's something that I'll have to live with.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be after 2 rugby-free weeks. It's been nice to get back in the swing of things this week. So
back, isn't it?
I lost track of lots of things in the last 10 days. So it has been good to get back into it.
I'm a huge fan of the sevens, especially the women's sevens. I was gutted for Australia missing out, and really feel for them. But that was almost enough to keep me going for the first week. But last weekend with nothing at all was something I struggled with. Yeah. Harry, any last minute points you want to bring up before we say goodbye?
Hey, guys, we're just happy that we invited to this tournament, and then we're going to do our best. But we're just humble servants of the game, and we're going to put our best onto the park. No, it's really nice to meet you guys in person. You're much better looking than I thought you would be, and
I wish I could say the same.
It's a pleasure. I know I'm much more ugly than I actually.
You're exactly what I expected.
I wish I could say the same, but I'm not as good a liar. So there we go.
No,
Right,
good
Brett.
to join you guys. It's always cool to spread the love, and everyone finds podcasts they like wherever they pod. So
Yep.
good to inflict a bit of our nonsense on your audience. So no, thanks
Collaboration.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it all, team. And as always, listeners, thank you very much for your time. Please download, please like and do all those other good things so we can keep going where we're going. Thanks very much, team. Have a good night, and thank you till next time if it happens again.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
If you don't know anything about rugby, don't talk.
Gregan. Drop goal from Larkham.
Australian 3-4, they've got the advantage.
Worst press conference. Well done, boys.